Sweet sound. I'm good to go, right?
Yes, you are.
All right. I would like to call to order the Marketing, Service Planning, and Business Development MSPBD Committee meeting of the North County Transit District for June 27th, 2024. That is today, and it's almost July. It's crazy. Before we begin, I would like to inform members of the public who may be viewing the meeting on the district's YouTube page that in order to make a public comment during the meeting, you must connect to the meeting using the Zoom link provided on the agenda. You must also register with the clerk by sending an email to clerk@nctd.org with a name and or phone number and which item you would like to speak on. I'll ask Sakil Rodriguez, clerk of the board, to call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair Contreras.
Present.
Madam Vice Chair Hensy. Present. Committee Member Martinez. For the record, Ms. Martinez is absent. And Committee Member Robinson.
Here.
This completes the roll.
Awesome. And Sakil, can you please provide us with a safety brief and review evacuation procedures?
Yes. In case of an emergency, I will dial 911. In case of an evacuation, please exit through the nearest door. Once clear of the building, do not re-enter unless cleared to do so by emergency personnel. There are fire extinguishers and first aid kits in this building, and staff on hand trained on CPR procedures if needed. This concludes my safety brief.
Awesome. And do we have any public comments today?
No, Madam Chair.
All right. So at this time, we are ending the public registration for general public comment. And before we get into specific items on the agenda for this meeting, I would like to outline meeting protocols to make this meeting as efficient as possible. First, please hold all your comments and/or questions until after the agenda item has been presented. That's why we have our little notebooks here. We can write away there. Second, when the time comes for board member comments or questions, please raise your hand and I will call on you in the order received. So our first item on the agenda will be an update on the implementation of NCTD's micro transit service pilot project in the city of San Marcos. Nick Soful, Director of Strategic Planning and Transit Systems, will present this item. I heard it was an awesome kickoff, so I'm excited to hear about it. Nick, you have the floor.
So I'm going to kick us off. As the committee knows, we launched our NCT Plus microtransit pilot program on June 10th, as the chair noted, in the city of San Marcos. Just a quick reminder what the service is. It's an application-based, on-demand, flexible fleet service. That's a mouthful. But what this means is you can use your cell phone or your mobile phone to call this brightly colored van to pick you up and take you point to point in San Marcos when you need a ride. So there's same-day trips within a 10-mile defined zone. It really is intended to provide mobility within the zone, but also first and last mile connections to our 4 Sprinter stations and 72 Breeze bus stops within this zone. So we have quite a lot of transit already. This is meant to supplement that. What we want to do today is know the committee's familiar with the service, but we wanted just to talk about the implementation of the service and then give you just a little bit of an update. We don't know a lot because it's only been in operation 17 days, but we do have some preliminary feedback and results that we're seeing already from the service, and we'll walk through that. And then just talk about our implementation before we kick off into how the San Marcos service is doing. So as the committee knows, we've developed 4 12-month pilot programs that we're going to launch. They are staggered over the next 2 fiscal years. Each of these pilots, we've built in flexibility so that we can adjust to local needs, see how the service goes. As I keep telling the group, that's why we do pilots, so we can learn and adjust. Nick will walk through some of the adjustments we've made already in the San Marcos service. And then that'll allow us some time to evaluate and monitor the service, see what's working, see what's not working, and then expand from there. We told the board when we initially presented this that we would fund these initial pilots, and then we would pursue additional funding to continue and potentially expand the service, and we're doing just that. So as you know, the board in its last meeting approved a grant application, the Access for All grant program through SANDAG, which would help fund the Fallbrook and Vista pilots and get those funded. And then the flexible fleet grant program, also SANDAG program, is out this fall, and we intend to apply for that program as well. Those are local grant funding, but we're also pursuing funding agreements with the cities if they're willing, and other entities, as long as well as pursuing other state and federal opportunities as they are presented. So with that, I'll let Nick walk through how we're doing so far in Sacramento, San Marcos. There you go. There we go. Oh, this one. There we go.
All right. So first, let's start off just a recap of the 4 individual pilot programs for MSPBD Plus. The first one having launched just 17 days ago in San Marcos. Next up on the docket is going to be City of Vista in April of 2025. That's very exciting. We know that service is going to serve 3 Sprinter stations: Melrose, the Town Center, and Civic Center. Fallbrook and Pala coming on board in the fall of 2025, and then followed by Oceanside. That's actually should be March or April of 2026. All right. We had our big ribbon cutting launch on June 10th. This was in the San Marcos North City at their farmers market. It was very well attended, great event. We had folks. We had a vehicle that did rides like around the block, so people could actually experience the vehicle firsthand and see how spacious it is on the inside and get some more information on it. We had free churros for folks and information. We had cards on explaining to folks how they could get their first trip for free using a promo code, and it was very well attended. And we actually saw a significant spike in for folks who downloaded our app and who created accounts on the day. That's exactly what we wanted to see out of that ribbon cutting initiative. Recap on the San Marcos zone, as Chris mentioned, we're just under 10 square miles. And I want to go back and make sure everyone knows that we actually started off with this zone being a little bit over 6 square miles. And then from our last board meeting, we got a lot of feedback from the community. They came out, and said, listen, we have 55+ communities right on the edge of your proposed zone. Can you please include these communities in your final zone? So we worked with the city, worked with stakeholders, and we did. That's how we ended up with our final zone being a little bit larger than initially intended. But we're still underneath that kind of 10 square mile benchmark we've got for ourselves for the size of districts. We're operating daily service, so including on the weekends from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. We created a separate policy that's in line with our other peers in Orange County and in LA, where if you are an unaccompanied minor, you have to be 13 years or older to ride the service. And that's just because the service is kind of a demand response. It's not riding a fixed route, and so it's really important to have a little bit of a separate standard for that. The fares are set. There's no surge pricing. We've been pushing that really aggressively of folks. And the messaging is that even though it looks like it's an Uber or a Lyft in some respect, in the way you hail it, there's no surge pricing, and the fares are set. And we pick up at designated pickup locations. Some interesting data from the first 27 days. To date, we have 723 app downloads through the Apple Store and the Google Store. Of those 723 downloads, 610 folks have actually made accounts in the NCTD Plus app. And we're tracking between 250 and 300 rides, for the first 30 days. And so once we get that final number, we'll be able to set our baseline for the first month and then be able to track our progress moving forward. Other stats so far to date, the mean wait time is only 9 minutes at this point, which is exactly what we want to see. Our goal was to be under a 20-minute wait. So seeing that our mean wait time is 9 minutes is fantastic. And our mean trip distance is 2.3 miles a trip, which is also right in line with what we expected from the service. All right. This is the final zone for San Marcos. Where we added was really a bunch of service area on the east side and the west side of the city, or excuse me, the north and the south side of the city. And we added a bunch of mobile home parks near Rancho Santa Fe, and then up in the by Woodland Parkway, and really added in. So there also there was Lake San Marcos where we had recreational needs that we wanted to address and add to the zone. So we added that, as well as some we added the Normal Road Sprinter station and some new town home development is going on right on the border there in San Marcos, at the Escondido border, so.
One thing I also want to point out on this, you'll see on the far right there, the little circle with the cartoon sprinter in there. That's the Nordall Sprinter Station. And you see it's sort of separate from the zone itself. One of the great things about this platform is we can set up spaces like that. So if there are carve outs or there are things where there's a particular use that makes sense, we can do that through the platform. And in this case, connecting to that, even though it's outside the zone, connecting to the Nordall Station just makes a lot of sense. And so we include it in the zone. So if you're going to or leaving from that station, you can use the service.
Yeah, operationally, we're staging 2 vehicles in this service zone, and we're staging them right at the Palomar College Sprinter Station and then on campus at CSU Ascent. So we've worked really close with our university and higher education partners to make sure that these vehicles are actually staged there so that when we expect back to school to happen, we expect a lot of ridership coming from those universities and from the colleges. And that way the vehicles will be staged right there to pick up at this trips. Okay, so the first step in booking your trip is to download the NCTV Plus app, which has been available now for almost a month on both app stores. Once you create your account, to book a trip is pretty easy. So I'm just going to just show a quick little video. It just shows just how easy it is to book a trip. In this scenario, it's let's say you're a college intern at Palomar College and you work as an intern at City Hall and you want to get to your job. You can put in your starting location at Palomar College and your where to over at City Hall. And what you'll notice too is that there's logic built into this, so you don't have to know the actual address. Kind of see there, I'm just typing in San Marcos City Hall, and it's going to figure out the address for me and figure out the closest stop, which is really convenient for our passengers not needing to know the exact address of where they're going. So if you wanted to put in a grocery store or something, you could do that. Once you put in your location, it goes ahead and plots your trip for you. Gives you the estimated fare. You can add additional persons to the trip at that time. Gives you your estimated wait time, and then you go ahead and request your ride. We'll then match you with the closest ride. That text message you just saw that popped up on the very top was actually my confirmation that a trip had been booked. And those text messages flow throughout your trip. So when the driver gets within 5 minutes of you, it actually sends you another one saying, hey, your driver's almost there. Please get to your pickup location. Reminds you to do that. And then you can also go ahead and make any modifications if you need to have an accessibility device added to your reservation for wheelchair accessibility. And then your trip essentially booked. It's really that easy. So it's been, said the flow is very intuitive, and we haven't had very many complaints to date. I think it's close to nearly 70% of our bookings so far have been happening through the app as opposed to the phone line. So majority of the reservations are happening in the app, which is exactly what we want to see. Right. Big marketing push for NCTV Plus. This is actually a beautiful billboard, right?
Yeah, so we've done quite a bit of marketing for the program. So we mailed all of zip codes 92069 and 92078 with direct mail preceding our event. We've been targeted geofenced with social media, lots of outreach around that. We did the big event, as Nick noted, that resulted in a lot of downloads of the app, which is what we were looking for. And then this is the draft billboard that'll be on the 78. So when you're sitting in your car on the 78, you can look at this and say, I could have taken a NCTV Plus vehicle.
Yeah, honestly, I think one of the best stories, something I witnessed at the ribbon cutting, was we actually had a couple of folks who actually rode the test van, right? That was just doing loops around the community, and then got off and said, "Can I book a real trip right now?" We said, "Absolutely, you can." And she took it into the library right there from the ribbon cutting event. So yeah, really, really great to see, folks, having the experience and instantly wanting to experience it really at firsthand. That's great.
We've actually gotten some really good feedback from Spare, is our software platform provider, the app provider, and they've done these implementations around the country, and they've been very pleased with our outreach and the amount of marketing we're doing, the community pop-up events. We've gotten some really positive feedback from their leadership about the support they even see in the community showing service. So that's fantastic.
All right, well, before we go to the board, Sahil, do we have any public comments for this agenda item?
No, we do not.
Okay, so at this time, we are ending the public registration to speak on this item. Committee members, are there any questions?
So this is really awesome. I'm glad to hear that it's already being received well. Sounds like our rollout was just so well done that it built community enthusiasm. Are we going to, as we continue to gain the metrics and learn about the usage, are we going to continue to infuse the program with these additional opportunities for promotion and strategies for outreach with the community colleges and the college?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we're gearing up right now. We have a lot of events planned at both Palomar College and Cal State as they get ready for back to school. We knew launching in June would they were already out for the year, but our goal there was to get up and running, work out some of the kinks, and then gear up for when school comes back in August. And so that's what we're doing now. We'll be on campus at both campuses in August with the pop-up events. And so and both universities or both colleges have been very supportive at helping us get the word out. So I'm very pleased with that.
Yeah, that's great. And then I saw that there was an option for children. So it said 0 to 3, you can have like a little baby come with you without having to bring your car seat.
No, you still have to bring.
No, you can bring a car seat. So what that's stating is that if, you have to bring your own car seat. But if you're gonna bring a car seat, it's letting the operator know you are gonna be bringing a car seat so that it gives extra time for the person to board. And it calculates that in the trip algorithm and it's like,
Yeah, and holds that seat too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Payment for, is it done through the app or is it at the time of pickup on the driver? How's that done?
so when you set up an account, you can enter in your credit card information. So it takes up all major credit cards, or you can pay through Apple Pay through the app. If you are unbanked, then you can pay with cash on board. So there's both options.
And what's the capacity of these vehicles? How many?
8 people.
8 people. Because it can pick up multiple trips, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So it's set up where if, let's say you're going the same direction, and someone else wants to be picked up along the way, it can make a small deviation to pick up that extra party, as long as the deviation is less. I think it's 10 or 12 minutes to be able to increase the efficiency of the ride.
Okay.
Oh, can I ask a piggyback question to that? So with that text message, do you get updates on that? Maybe your ride is gonna be a little longer than you expected. If somebody else is gonna get picked up.
It automatically includes that within your window because when you book, it gives you a window, and it's not going to add any other trips to your trip if it's going to push you outside of your pickup window. So it's set up to keep you within your window. But if the vehicle is running 5 minutes or more late, it does send an automatic text message, basically apologizing for being late. It gives the phone number to call if you want to get any additional information on the status of your ride.
Awesome. So these vehicles right now, first of all, great job. I mean, this is incredible numbers that we're seeing because this is a completely separate app than Pronto, right? So we need to get more folks to be able to download. I know I haven't downloaded it, so I'm gonna do that after this meeting. These vehicles right now, are they diesel or CNG? What's
Pretty
their,
sure people-
just regular, like,
It's a transit. Or transit.
okay. And in the future, do we anticipate that we could go electric?
We could, this service is suited for that. The challenge is two things. Vehicle availability, there's not a great option in terms of an ADA accessible vehicle, capacity, all that. There's some options out there, but nothing that's good in the meeting requirements. So that's the one piece. The other piece is charging infrastructure, making sure we have good charging infrastructure within the zone so that the vehicle can charge during the day. But if those two things can get sorted out, the service type itself does lend itself to alternative.
It sounds like if we, are starting to have a good partnership with some of the colleges, that we could maybe get together and build the infrastructure necessary to charge vehicles. But I think this is fantastic. And a question, so like when you use Uber and Lyft, like if you do not board within like 4 minutes, they're gone. And sometimes it's even faster than I was like, it was like 2 minutes and it's gone. So what is that? Is there a similar thing here or do they just wait indefinitely?
The policy is over 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay.
They'll wait 5 minutes. So you get a text message 5 minutes before arrival that will say, your trip is coming up soon, please get to your pickup location. And then once the driver is there, they'll stay for up to 5 minutes.
Okay, and is there any way to communicate with the driver if something's going on, like?
Not directly. You could
Okay.
call the dispatch line and then
Okay,
dispatch
and
can
then they
communicate to the
would-
driver, but there's no way for a person to individually communicate with the drivers, and we want that being operationally and safe, for safety to have, our operators, talking to folks in the field like that, but yeah, it all goes through dispatch and dispatch can communication.
And that phone number is easily like available on the
It's
window and
on the
everything?
app, it's on the side of the vehicle, it's on the website.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Let's see here. I love that you did direct mail. What was the cost of that? And is that something that we anticipate we're gonna do for every single launch?
I have to look on the cost of it.
Okay.
But it is something, we would look at, depending on the zone,
Mhm.
and what the area is within the zone. So this market lends itself real well because we're the two distinct zip codes in San Marcos, so it was pretty easy to do it.
Okay.
But you're right, it was actually very effective. You think of it a little bit as old school, but
Yeah.
it does get people's attention when you get that in the mail.
That's
And I
cool.
think it led to the good, because the direct mail piece promoted the launch event.
Mhm.
And I think it led to a lot of interest in stuff on launch events. So that was good.
Fantastic, awesome.
We put room in the marketing budget in the access for all grants we submitted for Vista and Fallbrook. We included a budget in the marketing for.
Oh, okay.
So directly out.
Very cool. And if we don't get that grant, either one of these people, I mean, hopefully we do. Does that mean that we won't see pilot projects moving forward, or is it just gonna be, because our budget is really tight?
So the launch of the Vista pilot is in the budget you approved earlier this month. The other pilots would be subject to the fiscal year 26 budget process. The grant funding would help us either assure the launch of or accelerate the launch of the future pilots. So obviously, the more grant funding we get, the more solid the future pilots become, and the more our ability to expand and advance the program.
Okay, so once this pilot is over, I mean, do we tell people, like, are we like, hey, we only have this pilot for so long? Because they might expect that this might go on indefinitely, especially if it's a service that people are really utilizing. What's the communication piece like?
We've been very intentional about the communication,
Okay.
calling it a pilot program for 12 months. We've been clear about that. I don't think that completely solves the issue that you're talking about. So yeah, well, as it gets closer to the end of the pilots, if it looks as if we're not going to be able to continue for a few reasons, we would communicate that out. And we've done this before because we had the prior Uber Lyft service that you're familiar with, that we did pilot program, similar timeframes. And the way we did that is appropriate period of time ahead of time, we would communicate out that it's that the program's ending. So recognize that that's a challenge that for the pilot program will communicate around that issue.
And could that communication be in the app as well, or I don't know how that works.
In the messaging.
Yeah, because I mean, I would recommend that we utilize that platform as well. So folks get used to it. And I just really want to thank you for adding mobile parts to the service area. That's something that folks in Vista who live very close to the Sprinter station at the Melrose one, they can't get there and it's like uphill, and it's so close, but I see that would be captured. And also, thank you for adding the Nordal station, because that station is a critical station, but it is so far removed from, and I will just say the infrastructure there is absolutely atrocious and it's not pedestrian safe.
Or car safe.
Or car safe, yeah, I mean,
To be perfectly honest.
there's a ton of accidents that happen in that intersection, it's just way too big. But in any case, I think that was a critical piece that you ensured was in the service area for that pilot. Outside of that, just thank you so much. I really appreciate all the work and I look forward to, I mean, this has been more successful than the Uber Lyft project by a lot. So, there were some issues with that, just, we have more control over this, so.
And we have all the data, so we're able to
Yeah,
look at,
exactly.
we're able to look at that, those origin and destinations and be able to, really take a look at, help, to actually help to inform, how we plan the rest of the breed system as well.
Right,
So,
right, some of the
by
fixed
having those
stops.
origins and destinations.
You pointed that out during that pilot program about the need for the data, and we always write.
Yeah, no, this is fantastic. It's a great way to get more information about people who maybe don't usually ride transit, but now there's a more feasible option for that, right? And, I hope that we can keep these pilots in perpetuity, right? And call it a regular program in the future. But in the case that, the budget is too tight, we can't get additional funding, at least we have data where we can start connecting folks to our other system that is gonna be in place, so.
And the other thing too
Fantastic.
is, part of this is intentional, like, not securing, launching the service before we secured the grant funding is intentional because, when we apply for grants and we go for other money, it's really compelling to do two things. One, to show, hey, we're up and running already, the service is going, here's the data. And two, to say, it's successful, so you're funding a project that is already up and running. And so it's a little bit of a leap of faith on our part to do it, but it also, I think, will help us get future funding because we'll be able to demonstrate a program that's working.
Mhm. Yeah, that's fantastic. Is there any way to also understand maybe VMT and GHG reductions?
Perhaps.
It could be difficult, I
Yeah.
think, to calculate. I don't know. I mean, but I'm just wondering, because that's like a whole other piece. Potentially, there's other grants that we can go after
Yeah.
because we are demonstrating a reduction in VMT and GHG. I don't know if that's true or not, but if it
It actually
is,
came up today in the Sanda, it's a flexible fleets task force, and they're talking
Uh-huh.
about the grant opportunity for flexible fleets coming up in the fall, and GHG reduction is one of the conceptual rating criteria, and we had kind of a little bit of a robust conversation about that. Is it really GHG or is it ridership that we should really be focusing on? Because you don't really know without doing separate surveys, are the folks who are using the surveys actually mode shifting, or what are they mode shifting from? Like, were these auto trips previously that were happening? Were these trips not happening at all because they didn't have mobility to be able to get anywhere? Or were they walking trips that were
right.
that go, so it's a little bit difficult to know without having the actual data, but I think we all agree that, ridership is a really good indication of whether it's working and folks are, utilizing the service, from the equity standpoint alone, it's very valuable.
And certainly your shared rides and your connections to
Exactly,
transit
yeah.
are good indicators.
Right. Yeah,
So-
because if folks are pulling together in an efficient manner and they're still getting to their destination in a timely fashion, you don't have to get into your car and make the trip yourself, right? You can just plan that, hey, this vehicle's gonna come, I'm gonna jump on it, there might be a few other folks on it. So I don't know how we would do it, or if it's feasible, or if it needs an additional budgetary consideration. But if there are grants out there and funding that are for implementing projects or continuing projects that are reducing GHG emissions, if there's a way for us to have some kind of idea, that's just more money for us in the future. And maybe it's just difficult to figure out now. But if that's something that we can continue looking at and figuring out how can we use this data that we have, or is there another data point that we need to take as this like a second level from this primary data, we can infer X, Y, and Z, right? It could be a lot of dollar signs in the future. So anyways, fantastic. Any other last questions? Everybody good? Okay. So believe it or not, this is just for information. It's informational only. No vote is required. So thank you so much. The next and last item is an update on the status of safety and security on NCPD's modes and facilities. Karen Topolsky, Chief Operations Officer, Operations Support Services, Chris Gadillo, Director of Security, and Karen Harris, Chief of Safety and Risk Management, will introduce this item. You have our attention.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and share this information on these important programs. So we're going to start off with overview on the security program and some updates on the statistics, and then we will be turning it over to safety and risk management for update on their program and some key statistics on their end as well. Joining me for the security portion of the presentation is Chris Carrillo, our Director of Security. So I'm going to kick things off with just some overview, basic background information to refresh everyone about our program model. And then I will be turning it over to Chris to get into the details on the statistics. So just brief overview as a refresher for everyone. Our direct staffing for the security department consists of our director and our manager, along with our control center technicians and our code compliance inspectors. In addition, we have our MOU with the San Diego County Sheriff's Department for our transit enforcement security unit, which is 1 full-time sergeant and 10 full-time deputies. I think maybe you got a chance to meet some of them. Not all of them that we have currently on staff. We're only short 1 deputy at this point, and they are key members of our overall security program team. The control center technicians that work in our monitoring center have primary function of conducting proactive virtual patrols, utilizing the security cameras that we have throughout our system, and that includes transit centers, operations and maintenance buildings, cameras along the right of way in various places. We currently have over 460 cameras in the system. We just had an increase in that, getting up to that number recently through collaboration with the city of Oceanside, where we were able to install some additional security cameras and PA speakers into the Oceanside Center parking garage, which is has a lot of things going on at all times. So that's a benefit for both NCTD and for the city of Oceanside, as we have a shared interest in that facility. Also responsible for supporting incidents such as unfortunate trespasser incidents. You know, they're the ones that are calling law enforcement, other first responders, anything else related to those types of contact activities during those incidents. And then just general support for incidents via video download, responding to requests from law enforcement for information about crimes that they may have received information on that are occurring in or about our service area where we may have cameras, those types of things. They are 24/7, 365, great group of folks, and do a lot of great work. Again, really focusing on proactive measures. Code compliance inspectors are our field personnel. They're the ones who are out in the field promoting our overall ordinance compliance. And again, distinguishing from law enforcement, they're dealing with our basic ordinance compliance, things like loitering, fare evasion, skateboarding through facilities, those types of things, smoking. You know, we don't want them getting into actual things related to crimes. We save that for our deputies and for other law enforcement personnel. But they are out at the stations. They also go out on modes as well, and we send them out on all the modes. Could be, you know, Coaster, Sprint, or Breeze. We'll send them out on all the modes, just depending on what the reports are that we're getting in from the field, what the incidents are that are occurring. That helps us decide how we're going to be deploying them. We currently have 2 vacancies, but our coverage overall is 7 days a week between 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. Push too hard because it'll click through too many slides. I don't want to be under aggressive. There we go. Last piece on our background, again, brief refresher on our transit enforcement unit. We are kind of midway through our existing MOU with them. Their primary responsibilities, again, are law enforcement activities. So they're the ones that are dealing with you know, crimes that are occurring on the system, maybe it's assaults or drug-related crimes. Those types of things that are occurring on the system. They are also the ones who are out along the right of way. They do spend a large amount of their time working the right of way in both Coast and Sprinter, trying to help us clear out any of the encampments, because that, of course, then helps us promote overall safety along the rails, keeping people away from those rail lines with, you know, with those trains that are running through. Chris will talk a little more about the services that they also seek to offer those individuals who are unhoused, when she gets to her portion of the presentation. That is a big part of their effort as well. We're not just trying to clear them out, push them on, we're trying to offer them some supportive services. They also will do special events if we need them to. We have been able, with our contract coming on board, for our on-call security firm, we'll be able to reduce the reliance on the deputies for some of these special events. Chris will talk a little more about, that new contract and proportion. But we do still use them as we need to for special events. There are some events where you just really want that law enforcement presence, like Dodgers games and Padres on the Padres trains. You're always kind of gonna want to look at having, the deputies on for some of those trains, because those types of things, folks can get a little, rowdy and excited sometimes, and need a little sturdier presence, to help provide a good environment. And then special, details as well. So they may go out doing right-of-way trespassing enforcement. They've also done some details along our Sprinter and our Coaster. And it's all based on what the data is showing us, about where the greatest need is. And their goal is really to go in and really take a strong approach to deal with these things and kind of, make sure that the problem, is addressed and then keep it stabilized as their general approach on those types of details. So we don't just conduct a detail, call it, victory, and then, forget about that area. They always do continue to keep that follow-up and try to maintain that, progress that we have achieved in any of those areas. And with that, turn it over to Chris.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good.
So we're gonna go through a couple of graphs here with regards to some of the data we've been able to collect from last fiscal year into this fiscal year. So as you can see, the blue line was last fiscal year. It was a pretty stable line across the system with regards to law enforcement activity and contact. And that's due in part just as we were coming out of COVID, the DA's office and the courts were now actively starting to file charges against people who are committing crimes throughout our system. As you can see in this fiscal year, there was a drastic increase, and that's really because of our deputy team as well as the local jurisdictional law enforcement agencies also getting on board with filing charges and prosecuting folks who needed to be prosecuted. So as you can see at the beginning of the year, there was a spike, and that's normal due to summer. It's been very busy today, the last 2 days with the hot weather. And then you'll see the drastic decline as we go into the winter months, and then a peak there in January. And a lot of that was due to the weather. A lot of folks were just hunkering down in our system. And so we just saw a lot of contacts where we were trying to get people to move along. As an example, the tunnel here at Oceanside, they use that as their shelter to sleep and to do other illegal activities. So, and as you see, we're leveling out here for this fiscal year as we go into the last month of this year. Our transit enforcement team arrests have increased by 43%, and that's year over year. When we terminated the contract with the city of Oceanside and Escondido, they came in at those two locations with a mindset of just putting back their feet into these locations, educating people, and when they didn't compliance, the next step is enforcement, citation, arrest, or whatever the case may be. So that's why you see that drastic increase in their arrests. I got it. Oh, see, so we're aggressive. Yeah, loitering. Okay, great. Loitering and vagrancy. As you can see, in fiscal year 23 or 22, they're level line, and that's due to the fact that majority of that year I only really had 1 or 2 code compliance inspectors. We struggled, trying to find the best quality candidates to do the job that we need them to do. As you can see on the blue line, it's kind of tails up, and that's when I had 2 and a third CCI at that present moment. And so you could see that increase as to why there was an increase in loitering and vagrancy, because now I have people out in the field who can actually make that face-to-face contact with these folks, as opposed to being on a PA system or waiting for local jurisdiction to make that contact for us. So as you can see, it increased year over year by 43%. The good news is our loitering, I'm really excited to show the next board meeting or a report. The loitering is drastically dropping. Of course, there are certain areas that increase, like Oceanside during the winter, to use that for shelter. And Oceanside and ECC continue to have the most reported incidences, making up 55% of our totals. And I'll go into what we're doing proactively to address that in the next couple slides. Now, this slide covers our deputies' outreach activities. They continue to work with the Health and Human Services Program to provide resources to the unhoused as they make contact, whether that be on the right-of-way or at our stations and bus stops. So the county outreach and support specialist rides along with our deputies once a week. Currently it's once a week, let's say 2 times. I think early on when the pilot program took off, we were wanting to ride a little more so we could get to as many people as we could. They offer supportive services, assistance for experiencing homelessness. So that's whether that they need to get their disability checks and or office assistance to get housing or support in any way that they may need. We did add a social worker to the program, and that kind of just helps offer that much more assistance to the unhoused. Here's some data, our data from the HHS organization. As you can see, this fiscal year, we as of April, I apologize, they didn't get the numbers quick enough for me for May. But they've contacted 351 individuals, 210 refused all assistance. And they were able to offer assistance to 29, and they went to 48 locations. And so the question would be is why are people refusing assistance? And it's due to the fact that some of these folks just don't want to abide by the rules and regulations that the shelters provide, or that they want to be able to bring their alcohol, they want to be able to do their drugs, and they just can't do that. And so they know that right off the bat. What they do take off is the capability to get their money from disability or whatever the resources they need it for. So this is one of the great things that our deputies go out there and become human beings with some of these folks. They see them there, that they're there to help them in these people who need that type of assistance. So we have a deputy's Sprague, she's the 6'5" deputy. She's hit the ground running with this. She has a knick-knack with, communicating with these people and getting them to take the assistance whenever possible.
She's really good.
She's great, yeah. And she's really tall. Yeah, so this was the Vista Transit Resource Fair. This is the second time that this was hosted. This was through the city of Vista. And what this is all about is offering even more assistance to people out there that are in need, outreach through homelessness, mobile showers, legal aid, healthcare, you name it. I think this was even more successful than the first resource fair that we had. NCTD did provide a booth there for transit information as well. And then the DA office also provided counseling and legal services for 219 people. So this is great work that all of these agencies are coming together to offer assistance, just a little more than what our deputies can do with HHS. On-call security services, this is what I'm excited, this has come finally to fruition. We have short-term security services currently with ODO for this last fiscal year. We initially anticipated only using them for special events and then saw the value in continuing with them to be out in the field. We have one here as we speak. Thank you, sir, for being here. So currently we staff 7 days a week at Oceanside from 6 p.m. to 2:30 a.m. and then at Escondido from 1:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. And part of that Escondido ride is they do start here at Oceanside, so we get a little bit more from them because they actually ride the Sprinter down out to Oceanside, so we get a little enforcement on the rides to and from Escondido. They also staff our Padre trains. They do their best to try to control some of these rowdy fans that come back on from these Padre games.
LA fans.
Okay,
Just
LA
LA
fans,
fans.
sorry. And that has been in place since May 1st of 2024. And they're providing onboard security, assisting the train attendants and conductors with any unruly passengers that may come to their attention. As of, we awarded the long-term on-call security services to Intercon. And this was, the agreement was January 18th, 24. The mobilization is going to go live this July 14th, 2024. They are currently onboarding as we speak. You probably have seen them. They're the security that are following my CCIs with the blue polo shirts that say transit security on them. It's great to see. It's 14 of them currently going through their onboarding training, and we have them everywhere. This present moment, we're getting great feedback both from staff as well as our passengers. They're excited to see them. They're helping out with security. So initially, to roll off, we want to start off slow. We don't want to go too fast for our own good. We have fixed posts at Oceanside and Escondido from 2 p.m. to 6 a.m. So this is even more than what ODO has been able to provide. It's a swing shift per se, both at Escondido, Oceanside, and then they will be relieved by an overnight crew that will come in and stay until the following morning when the deputies and the CCIs come in. And this is huge because we do such great work during the day, and then it's like they all know when we go home, and everybody comes back to do the things that they shouldn't be doing at our transit centers. They will also be on the Sprinter, currently, as we have some staffing issues, on the Sprinter side, but we want to make sure that we address these trains that don't have TAs to have some form of security on these trains as we're in service, and the numbers have dropped drastically. Like I said, I'm excited to show you guys the numbers, the graphs to indicate, our disturbances are going down, and even the disturbances that are happening on minor things, and they're getting addressed quickly. And so right now, they're riding from 12 PM to 8:30, back and forth, side to Escondido. When we do have a TA on the train, we typically try to get them off at Vista, just for that extra patrol there as well, and then we'll wait for the next train to get on that does not have a TA. So, and again, they'll also help us out with some of these special event trains, Padre trains and whatnot. So. All right, security law enforcement partnership. So currently we are meeting quarterly with several agencies throughout the county. We have been meeting with the city manager for Oceanside on a quarterly basis, just touching base, because obviously some of the issues that they're having are on the boundaries of our stations and centers. And we've been able to, talk about some issues and come up to some type of resolutions to fix some of the concerns that we have, both from their end and our end. And then we're also meeting quarterly with Oceanside PD, Carlsbad PD, and Escondido PD. Again, just trying to touch base with each other, discuss some of the incidents that have occurred, some of the things that they're responding to that we may not know. I rely heavily on them to obtain information with regards to suspects, names, and what they're being charged with. And then so they go into our database, and so we know who they are. Thanks. And I'm gonna hand this over to Jim.
One item
Yes.
of note, we had a conversation about ETC with the tenant that we have that is the mini marts. And they will be there through the end of September. Our team has already gone out and looked at that location and sort of decided what they wanted from a security and law enforcement standpoint. That will become sort of a, I don't want to say a community space, but it'll be sort of a security presence, sheriff's office presence, instead of having mini mart there. Plus, with the approval of the budget, we've added quite a bit of money to the security piece of it that will be rolled into how we deploy officers as well on the field. So thank you for that. I think you're going to see a lot of that energy. I mean, I think you see it's reflected in the numbers. I think our security team has done a phenomenal job. Our sheriff's department team gave a presentation to us internally and really talked about just in reference to San Diego County Sheriff's Department. They are one of the most effective units, if not the most effective unit in the San Diego Sheriff's Office, just in terms of community outreach, amount of contacts that they make, the things that they're able to do. So, we're very fortunate to have Chris lead that department, but also very fortunate to have the San Diego Sheriff's Office and our partners at ODO help us out. So more to come. A couple things we got to tweak before the end of the year, but it's nice to see those numbers heading in the right direction.
Okay. And click it to the next one, I guess. I'm a quicker clicker. So my report's going to be focusing on safety incidents that we've experienced for the last few years and claims that might have arisen for such types of incidents. So the first slide here, you can see that these are incidents that we report to the Department of Transportation and NTD, National Transit Database, and there are certain thresholds for these types of events. You may be familiar with if they're taken away within medical transportation, or if there's like a derail or certain threshold events that we do report on. So you can see for 2022, we've broken out the light blue is the bus events, and then the purple is rail, coaster, and sprinter together. And then we broke out slip and falls, mainly because last year we had kind of a 2022 and even 2023, we started seeing a problem with that. And so you can see, even though for 2024, this is just for the first quarter, at least for the slip and falls, we were pretty good on that front. We made a lot of progress. Next slide. Government claims received, just because we want to kind of keep track of those. You can see in 2022 for bus, we had 20 that came in, and for coaster and sprinter combined, we had 8, 5 that were related to facilities, not directly related to mode. You can see for 2023, altogether we had rising claims. You can see for 2024, We have a rise in claims for other facilities. Certain types of things are happening, maybe at this platforms, at stations, trees, branches falling down, things like that. So we're tracking a little bit higher in total for this first quarter projection for the full year. Next, we'll look at our trespasser reports. So this is for the San Diego subdivision. You can see we have three different lines trending here. We have the 2022 report line, which is the highest one for the most part. It's the light blue line, and then we have the purple line, which represents 2023. We are looking at calendar years here. And then so you can see for 2024, kind of right in the middle there. So we're definitely, reports for 24 are a little higher than in 2023, but certainly less than they were in 2022. Again, these are as reported by the engineers and operators. So we're always encouraging them to be sure to report these so we can get as consistent of statistics as possible. So with our, on the San Diego sub for the near misses, again, you can see the kind of correlates for the most part. For the light blue one for 2022 is higher. You can see that the purple line again is 2023, and we're so far for 2024, black line. So for near misses for 2023, we're down compared to 2022, and near misses are trending lower in 2024 in comparison with previous years. So this one is not as good of a slide. This is the trespasser strikes on the San Diego subdivision as of June 6th, 2024, when the slide was done. Fortunately, we've had more since this time. But you can see for 2022 in the light blue line again, where we were at on that front, and then on 2023 is the purple one, a little bit all over the place. You can already see for 2024 we are definitely seeing a sharp trending in this area, and this includes all carriers, not just coaster. A little more aggressive. Oh, man, too aggressive. Okay. Oh, no, that was you. Sorry about that. All right, I apologize.
Don't argue with your clicker.
So we put this slide together so we can kind of see what's going on in terms of what railroads are experiencing these. So we can see in for Amtrak, the NSF coast, for example, and then none for Metrolink, but you can kind of see it. The light blue colors shows you what was happening in 2022. Purple color showing you what was happening in 2023. Last year, you can see the coaster, we really experienced a lot of the trespasser strikes. But you can see so far this year, while we have definitely experienced a lot with 6 on the coaster side, we see Amtrak is already at 7. But again, for 2024, this is just this year, whereas the purple and the light blue for 2022 and 2023 are the total year count. Next slide. Okay, slow. Okay, wasn't sure. Moving on to the Escondido subdivision trespasser report. You can see here again, the same line colors. 2022 is light blue, the purple and we're black in 2024. So pretty much the trespasser reports continue to trend down year over year on the Escondido side. Near miss, pretty much the same thing. You can see for this year in the black, it's going up, but this is also kind of the time of year that you normally see it go up. For the most part, 2022 didn't really happen much in May, but it did go up after that. So you see, of course, in the spring breaks, sometimes we see more people out and about, even though generally, and summertime, even though generally it's more so on the San Diego subdivision. You can see that on the, as far as trespasser strikes on the Escondido subdivision for the last 3 years, certainly not as much as on the San Diego subdivision. We had, looks like 3 in 2022, 3 single events in 3 different months, and then in 2023 we had 1, and then so far this year we have 2, both in the month of February. So as we know, this trespasser strikes is a major concern of ours, and we're doing everything we can to try and address it. Last we spoke in the fall, we shared with you that we put up new 988 suicide prevention signs on both of the subdivisions. And then we also wanted to watch trespass reports at the YMCA bridge to see if the new fence was put in that had an impact on trespassers, and it's up, it hasn't. I mean, I'm sure people aren't jumping off the bridge now, but they're certainly still trespassing on it. We've also been conducting, I know Sean has been speaking with certain cities too about what we can do to enhance, what they can do to enhance safety, safety enhancements as it relates to pedestrian crossings and trespassers. We've also been working on public outreach ideas. Here's a picture of our enterprise risk manager. I went to the Oceanside night market earlier this year for the safety night. We just spent some time with education and interactive games with kids that teach them about railroad safety. We've also just recently had a handful, I think there are 7 or 8 of us now that just got certified about California Operation Lifesaver, and they're working on plans to reach out to certain schools in areas that are nearby railroad tracks. Another exciting, we're hoping opportunity that we may have is to work with UCSD. They asked us to write a letter of support for a grant, an FRA grant about doing research on root causes related to trespasser strike incidents, including, I was happy to hear this, including looking at the contributing factors of drug use and people experiencing homelessness. So we're really excited about that opportunity to see what we could do, partner with our cities to really address root causes as well as, not just building offenses. But we also are looking into a technology, it's right-of-way trespasser intrusion detection that we're looking at right now. Very exciting too, because the technology that we're looking at, not only, it doesn't just say, hey, someone's out on the right-of-way, it actually gives us not only the data, but it has the functionality to alert us. It could alert our operations control center. It can alert on trains, specifically on their train operator displays. And eventually, we're talking about looking at a system that will interact directly with our positive train control and actually potentially be able to stop the train if someone was lingering too long on the tracks. So that's the kind of stuff we're looking at. And I think that's it for the any questions for either of us.
Awesome. All right. Let's see here. First, Cecile, do we have any public comments for this agenda item?
No, we do not.
Okay, so we'll be ending public registration to speak on this item. And committee members, any questions? Yes.
Yeah, so I feel a little silly bringing this technology up. I don't know, maybe because it was kind of mentioned in my lifetime, but we had a presentation from our fire captain last night on the new drones that we're going to be using in the city. And he did talk about some overlap potential for, it seems more reactive along the rail corridor. Like if there was a derailment, we'd be able to see up close with the drone if there was a toxic substance and not have to have a person get close to it. But it seems like there could be some really good proactive uses for this drone technology as well. Just keeping an eye on trespassers, making sure there isn't anything on the tracks that could lead to a derailment. Have we looked at that technology for NCTD?
Yeah, we're actually buying some drones, not necessarily for intrusion detection. We're looking at actual intrusion detection software to help us with that at nighttime, the train control. To your point about what does the corridor look like, that's a little bit more of what we want to use it for, to program it to run across the rail line at any certain point that we desire, for maintenance issues, things that are blocking the rail, potentially for encampments that have been there for longer than we have known about. Now, our engineers do a pretty good job of calling those in when they see them, but sometimes we sort of miss things on the peripheral, and so the drone will be able to help us solve some of those problems. Probably a little more dedicated to the maintenance of way of things, more so than intrusion detection. We've got a little bit of a test pilot working right now that looks at when someone is lingering on the track, it sends an alert to the command center. It's not by any means a pilot, it's just something that we're trying to work on to see if there's things we can do internally. And we do have a partner of NCTD, and we're working with LoSAN to do a pilot project on an actual intrusion detection system that exists now. We're hoping to have kick that off here pretty soon. So there's a lot going on with that, but yeah, we are buying some drones specific to management of the railway. So it's a combination of all those things, right? It's first responders. If something were to happen that is sort of out of the realm of things that are happening in real time, we need to send. We can't get to the train. If it's in the valley or if it's somewhere where we can't get, the drone can help us do that. So there's a lot of good uses for it. I'm just curious to see how the intrusion detection piece might tie into that. If we do have an issue that exists on the rail, we can send a drone to go take a look at it. The setup's pretty wild. It's got its own little garage. You just program it to, you just program it to do stuff. It rolls out the garage and cruises the line and comes back. It sounds like a pretty awesome job to be a drone. But, yeah, it depends on where and how high and what type of equipment we buy. There are some that would require a pilot's license to be able to operate. Some that do not. It depends on how high we go and what type of equipment is on that drone. So we're kind of working through this. I think the one we want for the rail is pretty robust. And of course, one of the key pieces for us is we roll through airspace as we get closer to Washington and downtown San Diego. So we need to be a little aware of that, how they're programmed to monitor the rail, but might primarily be at night or be in the morning when the airport's not necessarily in full operation. So a lot to do, but yeah, it's coming. IT's pretty excited about that.
Yeah, a couple of quick ones. So the criteria for near miss is that based on an operator or engineer's assessment I'm just curious how they report that. I mean,
There's a definition nationally that sort of surrounds, like when we do our NTT data for bus or for rail, there's a definition that's sort of specific to what defines a near miss. I would say we want engineers to report to us anything they think is out of the realm, and then we'll sort of make that determination internally about whether or not it qualifies as a near miss according to the definition. I think from an agency perspective, we want people to call in and tell us when they see something, and then we can kind of determine whether or not training is needed, or maybe it was not at all. But we want people to share that information with us, even if they're not totally sure if it qualifies.
And we generally have them, if the brakes apply, if they apply a brake, that's what we're calling it near miss. If it's, they just see them, then they call it trespasser.
Now, sorry, I got a couple really questions more for my information. Trespassers are obviously those that are walking along the trail in the right of ways. How about vehicles that maybe intrude, and would that be considered a trespass also? You look at vehicles that, maybe they, I don't know, and go around. I'm just curious.
There is a category for a near miss as it relates to vehicles. I believe all of our crossings except for one have bars.
Yeah.
So I think when we look at those things, it's more of
pretty rare now.
Yeah, like I live right next to a crossing, and what I hear more often than not, because I'm in a quiet zone, is they'll blow the horn if a car is right up against the gate, which they should, because that's more for the pedestrians than anything if they're blocking that line of sight. But they could be classified as a near miss. It just depends on how far the car creeps into the foul.
And it's I think the grant you were talking about CSD. As I was listening to the presentation, I was wondering if there's been any attempt to try on a strike, and I go, most strikes don't end up well. You don't get to really interview somebody and find out what's going on. But is there an effort? Would that be an effort to find out maybe are they intentional? What they were doing, was it an act? they just not realize that trains come fast and you don't have a lot of time and all that, or is that the kind of thing that you're looking at?
Yes, it is part of it. In fact, in speaking with the researchers about it, they already have all of the sheriff's department reports or police reports for different areas within the state. So that's the beginning of their data. Yeah, and we actually do get the reports from when something happens on our subdivision so that we can be able to say whether it was a suicide or not. Because sometimes something looks intentional to us, but we really don't make that determination. It's the sheriffs that do in their reports.
And then this is probably more for Chris than, I was just on, you don't have to go back, but on page 9 where it's talking about the homeless outreach and the numbers, do you track like repeat? In that 351, is there a number of repetitive contacts?
Times we offer, yeah. Unfortunately, I don't get that information because it's client protected, especially if it's a social worker. So, the deputies are with the clinicians, each time they go out. So they get an understanding of who is constantly being offered. And it's ironic because we talk about particular people who continue to refuse and maybe they are continue to disregard our orders to maybe they're loitering. It may help from the standpoint of enforcement from a citation or prosecution standpoint, because then the deputies are able to go to the DA's office and say, we offered, Joe Smith 20 times assistance and he refused. So it comes in handy in that way.
Yeah, 20 strikes and you're out.
That's, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mhm.
That's all I got.
All right, so first of all, I thank you so much for the presentation and for all the work that goes into our commitment to safety on all modes. I like to see that we're at 9 out of 10 deputies, because for a long time we're at 8, right? So the increase, that's good. Any hope that we might be fully staffed anytime soon?
They did anticipate that we would be able to get that 10th deputy this fiscal year,
Okay,
not this one technically.
well,
Yeah.
Fiscal 25, almost in 3 days, it's not gonna happen.
Is that because those deputies volunteer for that unit and how? No, I'm just curious.
Yeah, well, the reason there was it was the overall shortage in staffing in the deputies department. So when we entered the current MOU, a couple of years ago, we added those 3 FTEs, and that was a complete brand new add to the overall sheriff's deputy office. And because of all the challenges that law enforcement everywhere has been having hiring, they didn't allow anyone internally to apply to come into a program because it would have short staffed their other contracts. So they've just been trying to balance that out, and now they're getting where they need to be.
I guess
Yeah,
not because they don't want to be on the detail,
Yeah.
because the folks that are on the detail
Yeah.
love it.
It's very sought after. It's extremely competitive, and they're very choosy about who they want to have on the unit, but it's extremely competitive. As Sean said, it is probably the highest performing unit within the entire county office, and other deputies know that and they want to get on there.
In the train along the coast all day, it's just gotta be hell.
Okay, so that's good news. And because are we paying the full amount, right? We're
Nope.
paying,
Big bill based on
Right.
hours worked.
okay. Awesome. Taking into account some of the issues, that we're having at Oceanside Transit Center and Escondido Transit Center, would it make sense to have some kind of a resource fair at Escondido Transit Center and OTC, like how it was done in Vista, or, is that just
Yeah,
not something that we're planning?
It wouldn't hurt, in my opinion. However, unfortunately, the people who are needing these assistance use our system and they're all up and down. And so if they're in Escondido at 10, they're at, in Vista at 10:30. But in my opinion, it wouldn't hurt. So we have to get, marketing, I believe, is the one that got this fair up and running. So I can definitely touch base with them and see if there's options with those particular cities to offer that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be great just to inquire and see where that goes. Seeing how successful it's been in Vista. I would, in some of these cities that are much bigger, I mean, this is only 19 square miles, but Escondido and Oceanside are really, really big. And yeah, I'm just curious to see if there's an appetite at those cities, to partner with NCTD, to do additional resource fairs. I think. I didn't get to go to this last one but I went to the first one, and I was very impressed. So thank you so much for that.
Asked if that was a city initiative or was that something that NCTD brought to Vista to?
I think it was the
I think
city.
It's a collaboration,
Yeah.
so we collaborate with City of Vista, the county DA office and NCTD. So we've done two now and it's a joint effort.
Yeah, because I don't know who actually said, hey, we want to do this, but it's the collaboration that's been incredible.
Sure seems like.
Yeah, so I just think there's so much more opportunity for us to maybe have more of these resource fairs. Cameras, we're at 460. Do we have a target goal for how many we want to have total in the system, or is there a metric for that?
Never enough. We actually, have a capital project for fiscal 2025 that is approved to add additional cameras and PA speakers throughout the system. So we have a approved capital budget of between the two, I believe it's 2.5 million. It's either 2.5 million to spend on those efforts. And what we are doing is using the results of the threat and vulnerability assessment that was completed at the end of fiscal or at the end of calendar 2023 by our external consultants, where they went around to all of the stations and made recommendations about where we would benefit from additional cameras and speakers. So, you know, that, whatever, call it 2.5 million isn't going to get us all of those. There are also a lot of locations along the right way. We'd love to have one at every single crossing. You know, when you start getting into crossings and even farther points down the right of where you're talking, you know, additional infrastructure, construction, you know, those types of things. But so is there a target or a goal? No, but we do have that threat and vulnerability assessment, which provides that overall guidance that I think was actually a good representation of where we certainly would at least like to be, you know, from a, you know, call it kind of, you know, not ideal, but closer to ideal perspective. The right-of-way ones are really critical too. Those are, again, a little more challenging, but if you hear things about, you know, trespassing along the right-of-way, you know, the intrusion detection systems we talk about also, you know, rely on that same type of infrastructure. You need to have cameras for those. And so, you know, being able to eventually start to build out those areas, I think will be instrumental in really helping to start seeing more of a difference in some of those areas, like the YMCA trestle.
I completely agree, you know, the technology is advancing at a quick pace, so that's why I was just curious to see, you know, 460 seems like a lot, but we have so much right of way. Yeah,
It's not at all.
Yeah,
I mean, you could, you know, the current vulnerability assessment probably has that number at almost more over double, probably closer to triple of what they would recommend over the coming years that we try to achieve.
okay. Yeah, I would be curious just to see if the next time we go through a safety briefing, if there's an idea of like what that ideal number would be. Just very curious, because we need to be able to talk about that when we appropriate our budget. You know, when it comes to the trespasser, I'm also curious, you know, what is our enforcement? Have we been issuing citations? What's the number of citations that we issue for trespassing? Do we have an idea of that?
That would be done by the sheriff's deputy.
We can get that information.
Yeah, I would love to have that included in this, the next time we do this briefing.
And we can, so the three cities that have their own police departments, Oceanside, Escondido, and Carlsbad that we already meet with, we can ask them for any data that they have. So for example, the trestle, I will give credit to Carlsbad. Those rangers who work through their police department are out there, I think, almost every day in the summer. I mean, they are doing their very best to out there and try to discourage trespassing. Now, that being said, the vast majority are minors, and understandably, they're, you know, you don't want to start issuing trespass citations and fines to minors for a whole lot of reasons.
But there might be a diversion program that we can, you know, create, or whatever the case might be, you know.
Some of that's their own internal city,
Yeah.
city direction. Yeah, cities have positions on whether you write minor citations for these types of things or
Right.
not. But we can see what sort of data they can give us because, you know, there are times when, as Chris said, they will be responding to calls for trespassing along the right of way. And, you know, we'll see what data they can give us about citations or warnings and things like that that they've written as well and try to put it all together.
I was gonna say, with the diversion program, I think, Carlsbad, like City of Encinitas, created such a program for minors who are e-bikers and not totally following the rules. And it's been really helpful to gain compliance with those e-bikers. So it might not be as difficult now because there's a path for doing so.
Yeah, I really would offer that as a strong recommendation that, because the education has to be a piece of it, you know, I mean, it's just, I think when you're young, you just feel so invincible, right? But really going through like why this is an issue and why you don't want to do this. And guess what? Like, we're trying to make sure that we educate first before we issue citations. And it might be, yeah, I don't know what the path is because City of Vista, I don't believe has any kind of diversion program yet, but yeah, I would recommend that we take a look at that and understanding that it's very difficult because we're dealing with a lot of different jurisdictions, right? But potentially, you know, again, because this could all come down to budgetary discussion as our budgets continue to get tighter in all different agencies. If we need to create some kind of a whole instructional program that, you know, cities can opt into to have a diversion program. I don't know what it looks like, but I think we definitely, I want to see folks that are trespassing have some kind of either diversion and education or a citation if they're at an appropriate age. Because the amount of strikes that we have is just too much. It's way too much. Yeah. And I don't even know if that's gonna solve it, but at least, you know, we need to have a lot of different tools that we're utilizing to try to cut down on this. When it comes to our code compliance inspectors, the 4 out of 6 positions, do we anticipate that we'll be fully staffed, in this next fiscal year? Okay,
I'm currently at interviews today. So.
okay, awesome. Yeah, and I'll just say as someone who writes the system a lot, I have definitely seen the increase in security, and I think it's really good. Especially as, you know, in the summer, I'm seeing more families traveling together. So I really appreciate the initiative that we have here, to prioritize safety on our system. 8% of the folks that were contacted, accepted assistance with the TESU unit. That seems to be a drastic decrease from where we were before. And committee member Robinson pointed out, you know, of that figure, how many folks are maybe duplicated in that number. I do believe that we could probably get a little bit more information on that. What we would do with that information, I don't know. But I am curious to see that breakdown a little bit more. And I feel like in the City of Vista, on our strategic plan to address homelessness, we really have done extremely deep dives into breaking down the information. Again, I don't know how useful it will be, but as a data point, it could just maybe just help us think about it in a different way or more comprehensive way. But I am.
If we may, I want Chris, I'll let Chris speak to this, but she and I chatted about that. I said, wow, those numbers are a lot lower than when we first started the program. Do the deputies or HSS have anything that they attribute that to? And we did chat about that.
Yeah, and when we started the pilot program, it was right at that tail end of COVID. And so we had a lot of people who were unhoused due to just losing their jobs or whatever the case may be. And so they saw a lot of folks who were, yes, absolutely, because they've just been down and out, lost their jobs or whatever the case may be. And they were taking advantage of these services that were being provided. And then as we've gotten further away from that, you know, those people are people who legitimately are going to take that and run with it. Now we're left with folks who are just accustomed to just being on the streets and not really wanting any assistance whatsoever. They just want their money.
So, we added, the social worker. I'm curious, if there's, because this is on the county side, right? The county is funding this. And I think Supervisor Desmond has been instrumental in helping us get this. So I'm just curious too, if there's an intention to add a housing navigator or another social worker. I mean, we've seen in the city of Vista and then Encinitas too, we have our partnership with the Buena Creek Navigation Center. And although it's just started, the numbers look really promising. But we have added a lot more to the team that's working with folks that are experiencing homelessness to have positive exits, right? So I would love to hear if there is the intention to have an additional social worker or a housing navigator. And I'm also curious to see if we can get the data points, like what services are we actually offering? Because there might be even a gap there in the services that are being offering. And at some point, being able to see if there's duplicated individuals that we're just continuing to have your point as to like, hey, at this time, like we have really, really tried to connect you with different services, but you cannot continue to encroach on this right of way. And I see it a lot when I'm on the Sprinter. I see a lot of encampments, starting at the Melrose Sprinter station, going to Oceanside Transit Center. And with that comes, there's a lot of litter in, waterways and whatnot. So it's something that we have to be able to address, I think, a little bit better. And I just don't know how we get there, but trying to continue our partnership with the county and add additional resources that might help. Where maybe that takes us in a better direction, but we kind of have to understand the gaps a little bit better to be able to say, yeah, we're going to commit X, Y, and Z, to alleviating this problem. But I really appreciate, digging into that. Outside of that, I was going to have a question about the off-duty officers, but I see that we're going to have additional security overnight because at Escondido Transit Center, it's just, I've missed the last Sprinter and having to wait for the last bus is a little bit scary. And with that, I want to ask, there wasn't any mention of lighting, but lighting is one of
That's
those.
getting addressed. So the Tracy's team that's not here today, we have gone to every facility and several transit centers, OTC, ETC, Vista, a few of our more frequented stations. And OTC, the best example I can give you is we're going to cut back some of the trees, put in multiple LED lighting heads on some of them. And we're going to light the place up. And our goal is to do the same in Escondido when we start to transfer over some of the security and sheriff's department personnel over there as well. It's all part of sort of a refresh. And lighting is the number one piece of that.
Okay, yeah, because lighting is a critical component of, addressing, what is it? It's like, it's something by environmental design. I can't
Crime
remember.
prevention.
Yes, crime prevention. There we go. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see that come online. And, even at some of the Sprinter stations, like at College, you have this beautiful bridge. Some of the Sprinter stations have like this great bridge that goes over the waterway, but a lot of times those are really dark. And I love the vegetation all around it. Like, I don't want to like cut back on this native vegetation in those areas. But I really would like to see it lit a little bit more going to the parking lot. Like if I want to go to Go Japan, I was thinking about it, like, should I go there for lunch? Like, but when it's dark and I'm getting off the Sprinter and I have to make my way across the bridge and through the parking lot there, that initial, quarter mile or less is a little bit daunting sometimes. So anyways, great work. I look forward to the next time we go through this briefing, maybe having a little bit more additional information but where we're at, this is an incredible report. Oh, last question. For the Springer line, the near misses, is that the Escondido substation? Is that, okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure I had that understanding. Again, thank you so much. This is also just an informational item, so we're not gonna be voting on it. And the next scheduled meeting is our regular board meeting, July 18, 2024 at 11 a.m. The location is the City of Oceanside Council Chambers. Also, I would request that maybe we can keep our board parking up, because some folks, it's really difficult. I actually had to take a car last time, and I'm sorry, treasure of Oceanside, but I stole your parking. Yeah, so I figured that was like a good one to take. But anyways, I did park there. Usually I take public transit and walk, but I was like, I don't see any parking anywhere else, so I'm gonna take this one. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day, and stay cool. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.
Any questions?